Syrian rebels have appointed Mohammed al-Bashir as the country's interim prime minister. In a televised address, the rebel leader announced he will stay in the post until March 1 to lead the transition government. He will hold a small cabinet to ensure public services can return. During the Assad regime, Mr Bashir reportedly governed parts of northwest Syria as part of the Syrian Salvation Government. Rebel leaders maintain Syria will be rebuilt now Assad's rule has ended.
Their fears are unnecessary, God willing. The country will be rebuilt. The fear was from the presence of the regime. The country is moving towards development and reconstruction. It's going towards stability. People are exhausted from war. So the country isn't ready for another one, and it's not going to get into another one. The source of our fears was from the Iranian militias, Hezbollah and the regime which committed the massacres we are seeing today. So their removal is the solution for Syria. The current situation won't allow for a return to panic.
Let's get some analysis. Joining me is the ASPI Senior Fellow, Mark Watson. We're talking about, in Syria, one of the most diverse countries in religious, historical, cultural terms, really anywhere in the world.
Yeah, the lines that we see drawn on the map were drawn up in the early 20th century by French and British colonial powers. They really don't represent the diversity of ethnic, linguistic, religious and clan affiliations inside the country of Syria. And you're seeing a lot of that reflected in this liberation front, if you want to call that. There'll be people on one end who will be extreme Islamists, and then you have a very conciliatory leader at the moment in Mohammed al-Jalani, who's making all the right noises about this is to liberate the country, not to establish a caliphate or an Islamic state.
Well, and in that context, you've got Christians, you've got the Kurds, there is, and as you say, the Arab and Muslim elements as well, some extreme, some not, including, at least at the moment, some conciliatory language from their leader.
Yeah, the test will be how they deal with all those different groups, including the Alawites, who make up about 10% of Syria's population. And of course, that was the clan grouping or ethnic grouping that supported the previous government. So there's still a long way to go. We're only early days in this, but the leadership is certainly making the sort of sounds that Western countries and Israel, for example, would want to hear, that this is about building a viable civil society. How they go, yet to be determined.
Yeah, maybe what Israel wants to hear, not what Iran wanted to see or hear. Their influence continues to be diminished.
Yeah, the big loser out of really events since the horrific attack on October 7 last year, the big losers, Iran. They've seen Hamas crushed, they've seen Hezbollah crushed, they've now lost Syria influence. And Iran relied on Syria to be a land bridge through which they could pass to Lebanon, to take their proxy war, as it were, with Israel right to the borders of Israel. That's gone now. That land bridge is blown up effectively.
And Hezbollah, because it was diminished by Israel, was unable to come to the aid of Assad.
Absolutely. And of course, the other big loser is Russia. Russia had poured billions into the Syrian regime. It had expended a lot of certainly military firepower and money supporting the regime, and the whole thing collapsed in 3 days. So it's not good for Russia either.
Are there any other, as you look at the instability, you know, some cause for hope? Let's hope that they are able to deliver on this more inclusive and representative government in that country with a wonderful history. Let's hope that they can get it back on an even keel. But what are the implications for the United States policy and for Australia too, if there are any?
Well, there are very significant implications. You know, it's in Australia's interest, US interest, Israeli interests to, for example, ensure that ISIS is unable to reconstitute itself in Syria. There are still pockets of Islamic State left inside Syria. We want to keep Islamic State terrorists in the prisons there. We need to get some economic viability into Syria, which will ask very serious questions. How are we going to deal with this new government, given the leadership is part of a prescribed terrorist organisation?
Yeah, OK, so that might be an initial thing they've got to address. Mark Watson, Senior Fellow at ASPI, thanks for your insights as always. Thank you.
Thanks, Kieran.